you mentioned him earlier. Manny Pacquiao obviously is coming back. You just talked about the thrill, the rush that you get from being a fighter. What do you think about Manny's decision and obviously getting thrown right into a title shot? I know you talked about what you're doing, which is a little different, a lot different than that. But it is, I guess, number one, first of all, is it fair for him to even be thrown into a title shot like that?
Remember what I said before. I said I don't think, I think that none of us should be bigger than the sport, and I stand by that. Even when, for me, possibly the greatest ever for me, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, I know a lot of haters don't think that, but even Floyd, when he would walk in second as a challenger, it wouldn't be something I would have done. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you always have to. I feel like you always have to. You always have to respect the sport first. But nonetheless, some guys will take that upon themselves. Hey, I'm a bigger name, and I can just come into a title shot. I'm very curious to see if he's going to walk into the ring second as well, or if Barrios is going to walk into the ring second. If he's going to like go all out, and because technically you're by the rules, and we know boxing never follows the rules, but you're not supposed to fight for a world title if you're coming off a loss, and you're not supposed to fight for a world title if you're not in the rankings. And if to get into rankings, you need to fight. You can't be inactive. So we've broken a bunch of rules to make this Mario Barrios fight with Manny Pacquiao. We're just being too accommodating. And I also think, like I said earlier as well, I'll reiterate a few things like I said, because these points stand. When you get older, your legs are not the same. You may have very good legs for a few rounds, but as you drag out a long fight, your legs start to betray you. I felt that later in my career. I would get into shape, but now all of a sudden, around 10, 11, 12, my legs are dragging ass, bro. You know what I mean? My legs are dragging. Like, it's like, dude, and I trained, you know what I mean? When I was young, they were still springy in 10, 11, 12. Now, so you get to 10, 11, 12, and they ain't so springy no more, bro. So that was a big reason for my decision-making to go, BKB, which is only 5, maximum 6 rounds. Pacquiao, having not fought in a while, 46 years old, a lot of tough fights, a lot of wear and tear on Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly, you can look at my career and say, okay, Paulie got stopped, 5 times? But getting stopped also prevented me from taking a ton of damage too, right? And I think I still speak well. I don't slur. I mean, I don't, I think I've protected myself well. I think I've lived well. Like I said, I like to eat, but I've always kind of worked out even, while enjoying eating in my retirement. So you don't let that sugar get to your brain and cause that Alzheimer's type of rotting. I think I've been good. I think that honestly, bless his heart, but I think that affects guys like Riddick Bowe when you talk to him. You know what I mean? I don't know if Riddick's issues are all from boxing. I think there's also from his bad dieting that he had a reputation for. So I've always been keenly aware that, especially recently, my grandmother died from Alzheimer's last year. And I started looking into what causes Alzheimer's. It's not just that brain damage and stuff like that. It's sugar. You know what I mean? So I think all of that has to do with wear and tear. Again, I don't know Manny's diet, but Manny had 70 plus pro fights, and he wasn't a defensive specialist. A lot of impact, a lot of back and forth impact. He's 46. He had a lot of heavy wear and tear into his late 30s and early 40s. So how are his legs going to be? That's my biggest thing, because I think, Manny was a range-changing fighter. He was he was that style, in and out. There's in and out fighters, and there's like pocket head mover guys. And sometimes you can mix the two, but rarely you see. Usually it's one or the other. But Manny's in and out guy. He's not a pocket guy. And an in and out guy needs his legs. And he needs his legs the whole fight. Unless he lands something big. I will say, I think Mario Barrios sucks, bro. I think he sucks, Like, I think the guy is
man, sucks. Like, come on,
I
man.
think he sucks. Dude.
He was putting hands on Tank.
But Tank's so way overrated, dude. Tank's way overrated. Tank is way overrated. Tank is heavily overrated. So Barrios, like, I can't get it out of my mind. Barrios is front foot heavy, and he's 5'10". It's just, dude, how are you? Like, you're just gonna eat every shot. You're 5'10" and you're front foot heavy, and that's what he does. He eats every shot. He just gets hit with every jab, every straight right, or every left hand. What do you dropped twice with that guy Ramos last fight? Like, just. I don't understand how a 5'10" front foot heavy guy who's not the biggest puncher becomes a world champion. Think about how much the weight class has to suck for that guy to be world champion. So there is a space I think Manny sees for himself to be. I think if the welterweight division was as deep as it was a few years ago, I don't know that Manny Pacquiao would make this decision. I think he see just like me, where I observed and I saw, I said, you know what, maybe there's a space I can enter here. I think Manny also sees it the same way, where he's like, I think that I'm looking at this welterweight division. I think there might be a space where I can enter here, and so I think that's part of his thinking pattern. I do think it's a risk. I think he looked really bad in that exhibition with the Korean guy.
You saw that, the exhibition?
Yeah, I saw that recently, actually, because I hadn't seen it when it happened.
But to be fair, it was an exhibition.
Yeah, so maybe he didn't get in shape. Maybe he just thought he was going to show up and it was going to be easier, and then it wasn't easier, and he wasn't in great shape. Trust me,
I mean, do you think he fought seriously in that fight? Like, do you think? Like,
I don't think anybody wants to get hit. I don't think anybody wants to get hit for real. So, but true. I think even if he didn't want to, if he wasn't in shape or if he didn't come sharp, then he would have got hit, and then it would have been a bad look. But then if he didn't get in shape or didn't come sharp, there's always the ability to say, okay, well, next time I will get sharp. Next time I will be. So there's a better version of Manny Pacquiao still to be seen, right? So I think is something that's going to be a curiosity for this fight with Barrios. I think sometimes he's crazy, but then I'm like, oh, is he crazier than me? Some people will say I'm crazier, right? But
I was gonna ask.
but then I say, like I said, bro, if I'm Manny and I look at Mario Barrios, I almost don't blame him. I almost don't blame him, bro, because I feel like I could be Mario Barrios too. You know what I mean? Like I almost, bro, I'm telling you, I almost don't blame him. I almost don't blame him, bro. In that, as crazy as he is, and he might still lose because he might be shot. Who knows? We don't know. We won't know until fight night.
Barrios is a big guy too. He's big. He's big.
Barrios is big, but he's still an freaking lightweight or whatever. He's not that big. He's just tall. True. He's not that big.
Right.
He's kind of frail. Like I said, his defense is horrible. And Manny still has one or two good left hands with that fake pump jab, and then whip that left hand between the gloves, and the fight could be over. The fight could be over. Like, true. Sometimes that's why we watch.
He put Thurman down, that
lightning in a bottle, right?
He put Thurman down with that, didn't he?
Yeah, but that was in his defense. That was years ago.
six years ago.
Yeah. But I think it's nuts. Looking from the outside, looking in, I think it's. But like I said, if I'm Manny and I look at Mario Barrios, when I look at Mario Barrios, even from my own eyes, it becomes a little bit less crazy. It looks a little bit less crazy.
Can you relate though? Like, can you relate? Just from the the training you've been doing, the way you're feeling now, how old are you now?
I can say the way I feel, but again, I don't think I have as much mileage. I don't know the mileage. I'm just an outside viewpoint, just like anybody else is an outside viewpoint, but I know the kind of damage boxing can do to you. You know what I mean? And I haven't taken a lot of it. Manny almost double the fights I had. And a lot of them really tough fights, dude. Really tough fights. Even in fights he won, he took a lot of damage. You know what I mean? Like a lot of heavy.
What do you think? Like, what do you think? Whereas, do you consider the Margarito fight? I mean, he was dominating that fight.
Yeah, but it was still physical. The Cotto fight, right. the Josh Clottey fight. Those are fights he won. The the fights he lost.
Right.
It's a lot of mileage, and the training camps. That's a lot of training camps, dude. You had a lot of fights, a lot of training camps. So heavy training camps are heavy sparring, heavy artillery, impact. And in your 40s, every year counts. I think. He's 46. I'm 44. It's only 2 years, but it ain't 24 and 26 where there's not a lot of difference. It's right. 46 and 44. I ain't at 46 yet, but 44 to 46. Those are different years, bro. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Have you seen any of his the footage that's coming from his morning runs and his
No, I haven't. And stuff? I haven't. Is he doing those runs where everybody joins him again?
Yeah.
Rocky-esque, right?
Bro, I can't even knock him. What current active boxer right now can even do that?
Yeah, and would do that, right? That's a credit to him too.
Would do that.
Like, hey, I'm gonna run. You want to come join me? Come join me.
Right. But he looks, listen, I can't lie. He looks, and I don't want to be sucked into the Mike Tyson 7-second clips, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are just bursts, like we're not
But
seeing.
are they from now or are they from 5 years ago? Because Mike Tyson, a lot of those clips were when he was training for Roy Jones. You know what I mean?
No,
But they
these are
use them.
current. These are current, bro.
Okay.
I got a guy that's
Okay.
out there. My guy Frankie, he's out there
Okay.
sending
All right.
footage in like every day. He was in fact, he was out there today with Shane Mosley. Shane
Okay.
Mosley joined him and ran for like 4 minutes before he tapped out. And
Well, it must be a good pace if Shane only lasted 4 minutes. It must be a good. You got to be in shape to last for a minute. Okay.
but yeah, but then they they did all that stuff, the
Yeah.
shadow boxing and everything. But his
Okay.
legs look okay.
Mhm.
He doesn't look
Mhm.
like the guy that fought in the exhibition. I'll say that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say that.
I will say at my age, I've adjusted the way I'm training. I'm training 2-3 workouts a day, no more than 40 minutes at a time. I don't stress the odometer too high where I'm ripping my body anymore. I'll go intense, but they're all short workouts, and then I'm watching my calories and watching so I do think you have to adjust your workouts with your age. Yeah, I can't be working out like 3 hours of intense workouts a couple times a day now like I used to, like where it's like you're doing this workout and they're super intense and they're super long and dragged out for 12 rounds. Me personally, I don't know what he's doing, but me personally, in order to conserve the energy and still get the most out of it, we're doing short explosive workouts, and then nothing lasts more than 40 minutes at most, sometimes 30, but when we're doing 2 and 3 workouts a day, but each time it doesn't go longer than that. There's a clock there, and I won't go longer than that because then it starts to rip you apart, you know what I mean, as you're older. And I've sort of looked into this and studied into this as well so that I can get the most of them, get the benefits, but also, not rip my body apart at this age, and it's been working so far.
Yeah, I think he did say he's had to change up the way he trains. It's very, I think he made some comments about it. It was very important for me to change up and recover more, do more recovery and stuff like that. And they have been taken off
That's
more
very
than
that's very vague and generic,
it
but
is.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
But
I think
at least
I
he
think more
mentioned
so.
it. At least there's knowledge
Yeah,
of it. So
I think more so than that. Like I said, you diminish the need for crazy recovery if you keep your workouts short and short bursts. Now I'm not working out for dragged out 3-hour marathons multiple times a day, and you know it's easier to recover when you're just bursting in 30-40 minute clips. It's easier to recover. It's not like a extensive extensive recovery. I don't need all the mumbo jumbo. I just gotta rest and that's it. I don't need hyperbaric chambers and all this like cryotherapy every day. Listen, it's good. I'm not against that stuff. I actually use it myself, but it's not like, oh my God, we gotta make sure we're on that recovery. Because
right.
I'm not destroying my body. You know what I mean? I'm getting great workouts out of it, but they're not long enough to where my body needs a crazy recovery. And I think that's important at this age. I really like Mayweather used to say the expression, I've always remembered it, work out smarter, not harder, and I think you work out smarter when you get older, but you still got to work out. You just got to know how to do it. I don't know what Manny's saying, oh, we're focusing on recovery. What does that mean? Like, because at that age, dude, unless you're pumping steroids at that age, like you can't do those dragged out workouts and expect to recover. So how are you adjusting? I explained how I adjusted.
Right.
I never only train. I would have never trained only 30, 40 minutes a clip before. I would have thought I wasn't doing enough, But these 30, 40 minutes a clip I'm doing now are intense. I wouldn't say it's cross training, but it's intensity of that,
Yeah.
But it's 30, 40 minutes. That's it. And it's 2, 3 times a day. Sometimes it's 2 times a day because I can't get that third one in. I'm dragged down a little bit. I will not let myself get to the point where an extensive recovery is needed. A solid recovery every day, but solid workouts every day, but the way I'm talking about. That way I don't need this extensive recovery where I got to bend over backwards to figure out how I'm going to recover. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, bro. You can't get too much out of Manny Pacquiao, man.
Yeah.
He's a man of few words, bro.
Yeah.
So I was just impressed that he even mentioned like, oh, okay, you are thinking about changing the way you train and whatnot. But we'll see. We'll see. You don't have a prediction? Too tough to call? Too many variables?
Honestly, because it's hard to say what kind of man he's going to show up. Honestly, it's really difficult.
I know, but you can say that in any fight. You can say that. You can say that for.
But a guy who hasn't been around for 6 years is more. It's more to say. I will say, based on Barrios sucking, I think, you know, it's the fight's up in the air just on that alone, because you're thinking about, oh, and if we get even a decent version of Manny Pacquiao, he could win the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you could, you know, you get excited thinking about like, oh man, you know, could this happen? That's why people are gonna watch. People are gonna watch. Like, oh, can he do it? You know, and the fact that it's even feasible to think that he can do it is only because Barrios sucks. Think about it. If Barrios was a good fighter, nobody would even think he's got a shot at 46 and all this other stuff. But you can start to think, man, if only Manny does a little bit of what he used to do here, a little bit of what he used to do there, against this guy, he can win. Oh, that's why you're gonna watch the fight, right? That's the whole point.